And for this problem, question number 9 on part A of the exam, I was extremely close to the final answer, and I knew how to do the problem. But and I'll show you how I solved the problem during the exam. And I only forgot to annualize the standard deviation of the excess returns in the final step. And if I had indeed standardized the standard deviation of excess returns, I would have received the correct answer during the exam. And so now let me illustrate how I approached the problem. And the Sharpe ratio is defined as the risk premium divided by the standard deviation of excess returns. And so for this problem, we are given the time frame of between 1926 and 1935. And so we would first, under the stock returns total data, which is provided from 1926 to 1935, we would use these returns. And so if we go to this column and press shift and then hold down and scroll down all the way through 1935, I will take this data, 1935, press Control C, and then off to the right in a new area on the worksheet under stock returns total, which I just made up, I will press Control V to paste the returns. And I will take the same approach for the 30-day bill returns. And this will give us the risk premium, the difference between the stock returns and the 30-day bill returns. And so if I scroll from 1926 all the way through 1935, and then once I have this data, once again, you simply just do Control C, and then off to the right, I'll just put it here. Next to the stock returns total, I will put it under the column heading which I made up, the 30-day bill returns, and Control V. And so, in order to get the risk premium, that's the stock returns minus the bill returns. And so, let's create a function by taking the stock returns minus the 30-day bill returns. And then after I have that, in the bottom right of this this rectangle, this little green rectangle or square, if we drag that all the way down through the last bit of data we have, it will keep the function constant, and it will just, for example, take this 4% minus this 0.1% to give us the risk premium of 3.99%. And then after I have this data, let's just try to make this a little neater so we don't forget. I would like to make a line dividing it. And so if we shift and then press the tab key 3 times, or excuse me, the right arrow key 3 times, and then press Alt HB, and then let's make this a top order P. And just so we know that the last data through 1935 is these 3. And so let's just take the average of all 3, and we type in Excel equals average, tab, and then if we scroll up to this data and then press the shift key, we will highlight all the individual cells. But in order to save even more time, we will press the shift and control, which brings you up all the way through the whole column, and then just press the arrow down key 1 time to select the data, and then close the parentheses, and that will give us the average. And let's do the same approach, equals average. Scroll up to the first data set, press shift. This will take too long, so we just want to press shift and control at the same time. That'll take us through the whole column. Let go of the control key and press, while holding shift, and press the down arrow to select the data, and then end the parentheses. And the same exact thing we have here. Hit control shift all the way up. Oops. Average. Okay. And so now we can see the average for the stock returns is 0.87%. For the 30-day bill, it's 0.16%, and the risk premium, therefore, the average over the time span from 1926 to 1935 is indeed 0.71%. And that's what I did on the exam. And then I also just created these headings just for my personal preference, just to try to keep the the data organized. And so since this data, the stock returns total and the 30-day bill returns are monthly, we need to annualize it, which the problem asks for, the annualized Sharpe ratio. And so to do that, we will just take the total stock returns and then times it by 12, and do the same thing for the bill returns, just times that by 12, because these are in monthly data. And then after we have that, we just highlight hitting the shift key 3 times while holding the left arrow key, and then let's make it a percent. And a simple way to do that is just press Alt HP, which makes a percent, but let's have two basis points, and so you click Alt H0, Alt H0. And if you want even less bullet points, you just click Alt H9, which would take 1 decimal away, but we would Alt H0. And we also need the standard deviation of the excess returns, and so to do this, we would take the standard deviation of the risk premiums, and so equals standard deviation, and this function is going to be eliminated soon in Microsoft Excel, but we can still use it. And for the whole data set, and now we have the standard deviation of the risk premium, which is 10.31%. However, we need to annualize this data, and to annualize standard deviation, we don't multiply by 12, but we multiply by the square root of 12. And so we take that times and then square root of 12 and close the parentheses. And then let's just make this percent for my personal preference, Alt H0, Alt H0. And then finally, but unfortunately on the test I didn't do this last step, which would be the correct answer. And so let's delete that. On the test I took the annualized risk premium, so it equals the annualized risk premium, and then I divided it by the standard deviation of the excess returns, and which gives me the Sharpe ratio of around 0.83. And this would be this is what I did on the exam, and if I had only standardized this number by multiplying it by the square root of 12, I would have obtained the correct Sharpe ratio for the period. And in the next video, I will show you how to obtain the correct solution, and that was just merely doing one extra step in standardizing or annualizing the standard deviation of the risk premium.